Hello, friends, enemies, and those still under review. Welcome to the Lord of the Rings episode of L Chats. This is the first, but it might not be the last as I begin my yearly reread of Lord of the Rings. I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to sit and yap with me. I try to upload every week. This week is special with 2 episodes because I've been burning to talk about Lord of the Rings and my thoughts about some of the things that I have read in the books. Where do I start with Lord of the Rings? This is easily the most noted interest of mine where I work. The amount of information I know about Lord of the Rings is well above average in some senses, but barely scratching the surface in others. I have read The Hobbit, and I have attempted to read The Silmarillion, though I haven't finished it. There are many things that make Lord of the Rings great. It has had such a cultural impact both through the movies and through the books themselves. I won't belabor the setting nor plot much. There are spoilers for both the end of the book and the movie after this. The overall synopsis of the plot is that an unlikely hero accompanied by another 8 companions seeks to overthrow a great evil. Will they be able to save the world in time to preserve the world they love? The answer is yes, though everything changes. The movies depict most coming out unscathed from this journey, which is something I think the movies kind of misses the mark on. I understand the limitations of the film and how much more time the depiction of the scouring of the Shire would have added to the movies. It's possibly one of the more poignant chapters in that the war physically comes home with them, quite literally, to Bag End. Sharky, or Saruman, has fled to this last resort accompanied by Grima Wormtongue. The 4 hobbits, Peregrine Took, Meriadoc Brandybuck, Samwise Gamgee, and Frodo Baggins, return to find gated entrances, men, rules, and Bagshot Road turned to a sand and rock quarry. They rouse the rest of the hobbit population, turn out the intruders, and while they do lose several hobbits in the ensuing battle, they ultimately triumph. They then have to feel the physical wounds of the battle and the destruction of the Shire. It's not touched on too much, but it does appear to help Pippin, Merry, and Samwise recover from their experiences, even more so than their time spent in Minas Tirith. Frodo is a sad exception, however, he did take on the most with physically bearing the ring and being stabbed by the Morgul blade. He and Bilbo are relics of the Third Age through being ring bearers, in my opinion. In the movies, it's somewhat different. The Shire isn't scoured, though we caught glimpses of it when Sam looked in Galadriel's mirror. I understand the technical reasons why the scouring of the Shire was not included due to runtimes and already having multiple endings. While unintentional, I think I can relate to the second ending more so than the book ending. The hobbits return, yes. The world is saved, yes. But the 4 hobbits themselves have undergone something that they can only really understand among each other. Let me explain why I relate more to the movie ending. It's simply more applicable to my life experience. When we look at modern wars, when countries deploy to other countries, the soldiers will return home, having witnessed goodness knows what. Most people don't understand what they have gone through or seen. The scene where the 4 hobbits are sitting around with half pints in the Green Dragon is a great example of this. Everyone seems to be ignoring what's going on, and yet they've changed. For those from the United States and in Western Europe, war isn't really something that comes home anymore. Sure, we hear about it and know soldiers who have deployed, but it isn't exactly etched into everything we know and see. So the scouring of the Shire and its rebuilding as a community effort is so very different from those that served in Afghanistan or Iraq or Kuwait or Jordan. In a way, the movie ending is much more relatable to today's veterans. We leave, we come back, and everything is wildly, crazily, bizarrely still the same. This is starkly different from the experiences after the World Wars in Europe, where the book ending is more applicable. Not one aspect of their life was unaffected. There were massive reconstruction projects all throughout Europe, and they also survived aerial bombardment. This brought the war home, made it personal, and the soldiers, sailors, and pilots who returned to a scarred world. In a way, they had to fight to restore it. They maybe had to overthrow their own Sharkies and make their societies beautiful again. Even now, you could still find parts of the war in London and the use of gurneys as fences. For them, the destruction of war is still in living a memory, though it is slipping away now. You could still walk the streets that may have fragments of shells or bullet holes in the walls of buildings. We don't see that here in the US. Of course, this is all my interpretation as a reader, using applicability instead of allegory. Tolkien himself calls out the scouring of the Shire in the foreword to the second edition of Lord of the Rings as people assuming he's talking about England and the aftermath of World War II. I can see the applicability between the 2 scenarios and how it could be interpreted as an allegory for the aftermath. I'm going to be very clear in that I'm not saying that this is an allegory for the end of the World Wars. I'm saying it's applicable. I'm going to take a bit of a pivot and bring up one of my other favorite things about Lord of the Rings. I appreciate that the person who stays behind still engages meaningfully. I'm speaking of the fifth Hobbit, Fredegar, Fatty, Bolger. Surprise, movie watchers! There's 5 hobbits! While the main 4 leave, Fatty stays behind and helps to disguise that Frodo has left by wearing some of his old clothes. He was, to quoting Tolkien, stay behind and deal with inquisitive folk and to keep up as long as possible the pretense that Mr. Baggins was still living in Crick Hollow. This plan is revealed in the end of Chapter 5, A Conspiracy Unmasked. We leave him behind and meet another book-only character, Tom Bombadil, before we come back to poor Fatty Bolger. I must clarify somewhat and explain that in the book, Frodo lingers through the summer selling Bag End to the Sackville Bagginses. Yes, those Sackville Bagginses, buying a house in Crick Hollow near the Brandybucks, citing that he wants to live near that side of his family. This is meant to be a quiet retirement from public life in the Shire, so if he were to disappear, his fellow hobbits wouldn't suspect nor tell that he had left the Shire. The same night that Frodo and the hobbits meet up with Strider at the Prancing Pony is the night that the Nazgul make a move in the Shire. Fatty had been feeling an increasing sense of fear all day and spotted one in the garden. He ran away as soon as he saw it, not all hobbits being made of courage, nor having the courage awoken to alert the Brandybucks. As soon as the Nazgul attempt to break in, they sound the alarm. This is the indication, several days later from Frodo and the others departing, that the ring is gone from the Shire. This is not where Fatty's story ends. After the ruffians are run out of the Shire alongside Sharky in Chapter 9, The Grey Havens, in the 6th book of Lord of the Rings, it is revealed that Fatty was in the Lockholes, or the prison, whilst Sharky was in charge. He had been arrested when the, quote, ruffians smoked out a band of rebels that he led from their hidings up in the broken boards by the hills of Skerry. He is not the only hobbit arrested for attempting to resist, but he is, notably, the first mentioned by name. I thought that this couldn't be the last time we hear about Fatty Bolger, so I scoured the appendices to find any more mention of him. I did find him in the family trees, being related to Gerontius the Old Took, and therefore a close cousin to Bilbo and Frodo. He was born in 1380 by Shire reckoning to Rosamunda and Odovacar Bolger. This makes him on the older side of the Hobbit group, as Frodo was born in 1368, Merry in 1382, and Peregrine in 1390. This inclusion of Fatty in the narrative, both in the beginning and still having a role after the main players leave, is very important to me. I haven't yet been the one to stay behind while others leave, but I've heard it's tough. I've also heard that it's very important to continue living, and I think Lord of the Rings really illustrates that. The other hobbits, too, in the Shire, continue to live their lives. In the end, the applicability of Lord of the Rings is what keeps me coming back, both for the book and the movies. Every year that I reread the books, different themes and words stand out to me. Last year, it was the friendship that really carried the Fellowship and Sam and Frodo through the events of Lord of the Rings. I've really barely started this year's reread, so we'll see what sticks out at the end of the year. Now I turn this to you, friend, enemy, or those on a review. What do you think of Lord of the Rings? Have you only watched the movies? Have you never seen nor read the books? Thanks for listening to me chat. I try to have new videos weekly. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Remember, being a fan is fun, and have a great day.